So on the show today, Rita Venturini. So Rita, I made friends with at the Tenchi Centre, which is one of my just favorite embodiment places on the planet. Outside of Lisbon, there are some great classes there. I was dancing Gaga and Fire Rhythms and Contact Dance, and she'll tell us about the social presencing there. It was founded by an Aikido guy, so I sort of felt at home there. And yeah, just very, very cool place, real in-person embodiment and community. Rita, welcome.
Hi, Mark. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
This is the first time we've actually been online together. You're someone that I've hung out with, had lunch with, danced with, but this is like the opposite way around to most of the world right now.
I know, it's interesting, actually. It's true. It's the first time that I Zoom with you and then I see you on the screen.
Normally I Zoom with people, then meet them, but this is different, huh?
Yep.
Maybe that's going to be one of our themes for today, you know, the difference between online and kind of in-person embodiment. It's one of the things that's attracted me to Lisbon, and you know, your center was definitely part of that. But let's find out a bit about your life first, Rita. Where did you first get interested in movement and embodiment? Like, how did this come into your life?
At some level, always, because I really always loved dancing. I really love dancing. And I grew up in an environment in which you were a dancer. If at 6 you were already in the academy, you know, in Milan.
Milan, that's where you go.
You know, and so I never, you know, I went a completely different direction in my life. And I went to medical school, and I became a researcher. That's how I moved to California. And in a way, I was always curious about the same things that I'm curious now, you know, something about the intersection of awareness and attention and intention. And I was trying to see how I could study that. From there, I studied visual perception, I worked with attention, with plasticity. But it was really a painful journey for me. I did not enjoy the daily life of it very much. I love the people. My husband I met there, and a lot of friends. And I just really didn't like the computer, the animals, the details, all of these things. And then I was lucky, I lived in California. So I decided at some point that science I was done with, you know. And I started with these things that they were the first coaching things, questionnaires, you know, what do you like? And I wrote down, I like people. People. No, people. Yeah. And I like dancing. You know, this is my level of awareness at almost age 30. You know, like.
So you're in a great place in California there to study stuff, you know, because now embodiment's really spread much further in the world, you know, Moscow, Portugal, England,
yeah.
But back, you know, Israel, but back then there was sort of, you know, if you weren't in Northern California, you were probably missing out, right? So there was a huge hub back then in a way that now it's spread more.
It was incredible and amazing, and really already weaving together what then for me is still an obsession, the old somatic practices with improvisation, and why is that is important, you know, and how, you know, I can as an improviser learn to use this tool of sensing the present moment. But maybe I don't sense everything in my body because I'm so crooked in many other ways, that if I learn to really be in my body more, I can sense with a different quality and a different dimension, which then for me, in many ways, I noticed the thread now that I'm going to be 60 this year. So, you know, those moments of reflection, and really seeing, okay, I've been following this thread in some way of like, how can I be in the world that is different than this thinking in boxes that I had to deal through most of my life, you know, being in medical school, being in scientific academia, you know, it was really like all of this, you know. everything is deliberated in endless conversations and debates, you know. And really this curiosity, how can we do things together? Effortlessly.
Okay, so there's a few themes here already that we'll, I think, go deeper into as some of your main areas. So togetherness, intuition, improvisation. I mean, social presence in theatre is one of your main modalities. We had Arowana on the show. People may or may not have heard that. So it's probably best that we, you know, sort of say what that is from the start. But why this area of kind of feeling deeply, intuitively, improvisationally? Why has this particularly grabbed you?
I guess for what I was just saying now at the end, I always had a craving for doing something with others. Starting with my family, I was trying to make them get along, but they didn't, you know. So, like, and in many contexts, I experienced this, and people trying to collaborate. And I'm finding more and more that what you already see, for example, if you go to an improv show, you know, people go on stage and they come up with something. Yep. And if they're good, it's brilliant, you know. And it's because they're there and they're listening and they are co-creating in the moment. It's still something, though, it's real, you know, there are people there and maybe some of the people are paying money, you know, and they're clapping and they're happy and they're sustaining and creating a livelihood and whatever. But it's still like a play. For me, the thing that is really interesting and what I find super exciting in this project I'm in now is that how do I apply this in the real situation?
Right. So not just to entertain people, because it's fantastic to entertain. And then there's also like education. Like I did some of my students took me to a playback theater thing. They did some playback theater and they were like showing different elements of our community in Russia. If you're out there, Kim, nice to see you there. And that was sort of revealing and kind of it was touching emotionally, but it was this element of how you bring it back into life as well, right?
For me, that's the part, you know, like in here, there is the opportunity to see, okay, we do this practice, we do it every day. This creates a certain listening from ourselves, a certain social field. And then within that, stuff happens in the project and starting to see how do things go together, you know, like.
You know what, let's just place you a little bit. So can you say something about the because people that are listening to the podcast, not the YouTube, they won't see this beautiful backdrop. You're there. It's something of a little paradise, isn't it? Do you want to describe the center and where you're at?
Yes. It's a small retreat center, just 2 hectares near Sintra in Portugal.
The Lisbon area, just to place that.
The Lisbon area, about 40 minutes from Lisbon. Yeah, and it's a beautiful land, somehow landscape in a very Japanese fashion, because the person that the incredible creator of the space, Georges Tobar, he was together with many other things, also a beautiful designer, an implementer of Japanese gardens, and so he created these Japanese gardens with 2 beautiful dojos to practice Aikido and Aido and other yoga and different types.
2 quite big halls, aren't they? Beautiful dance floors, nice spaces, a few other little buildings around the place, and these lovely gardens. You know, very green space, isn't it? I used to just enjoy going there as well as the classes when I was in the area.
Definitely. We have people that just come on the weekend for a walk, you know, like
just hang out. Nice place for a cup of tea. And then do a fire rhythms class where you're at. And some people live there, some people stay for a little bit, right, in the bunkhouses and things. You know, there was no 5-star accommodation, so I didn't stay. So I just had to, you know, come back daily.
No 5-star accommodation. We are working a bit towards that. I don't know if we're ever going to be 5-star, but at least it will be 5-star in uniqueness.
It's certainly unique, And you have classes there every day in 3 or 4 things, right? Like I've come a couple of times and stayed.
Yeah, we have classes every day. We have weekend workshops and during the summer longer time workshops, or during the holidays, or actually even in normal times. So we have different workshops on really very much this type of work, a lot of self-awareness through movement, some martial arts, some improvisational dance, collective things like five rhythm, ecstatic dance, gaga, endless cacao ceremonies.
Endless cacao ceremonies. Yeah,
We
I've
have a
been to
lot of
cacao
fire
ceremonies.
pits, and it's I think that we are in a transformation period as well. A lot of is emerging, and actually, a fun anecdote is
What's right?
related. A fun anecdote.
Okay.
This summer we had a lot of social presence in theater events, one after the other. And in one of them, we were exploring social presence in theater and visual art. A bunch of us are interested in this. And so we were doing this thing that is called 4D mapping, which is a bit like a family constellation, that you do to look at a system in a certain point in time and see its evolution. And in this particular case, the 4D mapping was about Tenchi. And the question was, what does the land want?
Uh-huh.
And that's part of also of our ethos behind, we have a cushion in our practice. We have a cushion for the land that is always there with us. It's been now for 3 years sitting in our morning practices.
And this is missing in some urban spaces, right? Like, for example, I'm thinking of another urban space in Lisbon City, which is a beautiful space, but it's not on the land, it's not in the nature. There isn't a feel like that's important. Whereas somewhere like here, you have to walk through the mud or down the path to get to the dojo. You have to walk for 10 minutes through the trees and down the hill, from where the taxi drops me off or whatever. And it's like, you can't not be thinking about land as well as movement there. And it's just a thin piece of wood or screen door away, as opposed to, a brick building or the hotel I'm in now, where, I could sort of look out the window, but it feels a long way away.
Yeah, definitely. The outdoor and the nature is much closer.
Even this interview, you're one of the few people that I've interviewed outside. Like you're sitting outside, people can't see other listeners, but they're like that. You're maybe one of 2 or 3 people who've ever done that on my 350 guests.
That it's interesting you're saying that, because during the pandemic we developed a practice online that is still happening now, that was called Social Presence in Theater in Nature or Not.
Mm-hmm.
And it started because with my training group of training people for advanced SPT, we had started to meet when the pandemic started with the first lockdown to just practice together. And they realized that I was outside and they were hearing my birds and seeing the sun, and it was having a big impact on them. So we started having these, at the beginning, they were every other week, online practices with people coming from Canada, or things like that, where there it was dark and they had not been out of their apartment.
Yeah, it's really common. I'm lucky I've got a balcony here. It's a bit noisy, but I like to sit outside every time I get, and it makes a huge difference if you can spend that time outside. And just to get everyone on the same page, would you say like what social presence in theatre is, just the basics, that because it's not necessarily a commonly known thing, unfortunately?
Yes. Really, in a nutshell, that social presence in theatre is a set of tools for improvisation as well. But what is specific is how focused it is on understanding systems, and in particular, human systems. So how can you put that at service, that knowledge at service to a pre-existing system that can be a business, or it can be a community or a country or whatever, And it's part of a theoretical approach called Theory U, started by many people, but formalized by Otto Scharmer. And it started initially from MIT Business School. So it's interesting. I like how this has this breath, like, and system arrives to business very clearly, because business sees impact immediately. So they're all willing to go and try interesting things. I learned in my life that academia is not like that, for example.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Business is very practical. It's like, okay, does it help us make more money? There's this sort of availability of like, is this practical? And is that bottom line there? So Odashama, business consultant, smart guy, interviewed him as part of the conference, and he got Awana Hayashi involved, right? Because he was like, hey, hang on, I'm a smart academic kind of MIT guy, but I need a body person.
Yeah.
He's a cerebral guy.
Very, very good at seeing that well, of course. And Arawana is a perfect combination, because both her training improvisation as a performer and dancer and practitioner, and the Shamala work really just focus on this, or how do we look at this ensemble and the energy and the transformation of energies and the places in which things go from stuck to unstuck.
And people may be used to an embodied practice, like you dance and you're primarily interested in yourself, even if you dance with a partner, or you do Aikido, maybe it's with a partner. But this is different because it's about the systems. It's about how people as a group, and either, as you say, like representative of something, or like, can you explain a little bit of that? Because it's pretty different for people that
That's
maybe
why I
have
wanted to give
before.
the concrete example that I started before the 4D mapping.
Yeah.
I'll give you that example because I think it really helps. So one first thing, just to start with, in social presence in theater, as I believe in improvisation, any type of improvisation, you have 100% your attention on you, on everything that your antenna is picking up, and 100% your attention.
Right. That's different, right? It's not just on your body like in yoga, like
it's here and completely out, Right. So how wide can I get to, and how can I let in all of this information that then inform me, makes a form coming out. So my shape is actually the statement of what is picking up, be perceived this antenna that is my body. So that's why a lot of the practices of social presence in theater, like, for example, also process work things from Arne Mindel, is about let your body do and see what it's doing. That becomes the curiosity, like, what is my body knowing that I don't? What is picking up that my mind is not wrapping itself around because it's busy something else or whatever. And so in the social presence in theater, tools like the 4D mapping is how can I use this information also to inform another system that I don't even have to be part of. So for example, in this one that we did here, it was the system Quinta Tenchi, and it was the question, what does the land want? So we look at what are the roles there,
So we're in a system that's an actual system, like right now.
You've been here, you sit in it. And so there is the land. That's one of and it always in this 4D mapping anyway, you have to have something, a representative for the earth. Always there. So the land is there. And then there is me and Paul, my husband. We are at the moment the owners, because that's the world we live in, but we feel shepherds of this place. There are the people that don't know about this place yet, that are marginalized by it because they just don't know about it. There are the people that we want to become co-creators with us of the place because it's too big of the project for two people. And then that's a bit what we want to create. We want something like a beloved community. We want people to be here and be heartful.
Yeah.
Each other, and so these were the 6 roles, and 6 different people came in the particular way that I work with. That is different from Arawana. I just want to make sure that this is made clear because I know that she wouldn't do it in this way. The people don't know their role. In my case, I wrote it in pieces of paper. I shuffled them around. I put numbers, and you get called for a number. Who wants to be number 1? And there is where your work starts already. Is my body saying, okay, I'm going to go?
Right, sure.
And And what emerged doing this was really incredible. The people that don't know yet about the Tenchi came in with a big bucket of yellow water and yellow paint and threw it in the entire place where there were already two people, which turned out were the land and us, with a line in the middle. And they came and they threw this thing and canceled the line between us and the land. I'm giving you what emerged, but nobody knows what's happening there. It's just this, she comes in and she throws a bucket of paint.
So people are just intuitively doing something that flows with however they're internally feeling.
And then all of the people come in and you do a thing that is called sculpture one. So everybody has the body and then they say a sentence. So this is the first snapshot of your system, the way in which it is now. Then you allow movement to start happening. The roles interact in different way and you come to a second place. And this is like the emergent future sculpture 2 or whatever. And we just did this, no? So we talked about it, we think about it, and then you have to also take it in. And this happened mid-August. And then I'm writing the newsletter at the end of August. And in the last 30 seconds, I think, oh, I have to do this event. And I made an event in which every first weekend of the month, new people come here and volunteer for 2 days. And before I even sent out the newsletter, 2 or 3 people had already signed up for the event. And it started this flux of new people that didn't know about the place. They started to come and do work on the land and really literally heal this relationship between me and Paul and the land, that after a year of being here by ourselves, we're more like, I can't look at you because there's so much to do.
It's a wild, kind of a wild place. There's a lot there.
I need to go away.
Too much, yeah.
And you'll be shocked when you come back because so much already has happened since the fall, and really just unfolding in a way, as I would like to do at some point an article about this, but it looks like the steps that were in this 4D mapping came out after. So and consider that people had no idea.
Yeah, this is the magic in that way.
They were doing, no?
Yeah, so it's ways to use our bodies as these sensitive radars to explore something in a kind of maybe non-linear, sort of intuitive kind of a way, and stuff comes out, and then that feeds back into something as concrete as like your newsletter and what program you're writing for people.
Yeah. And how you see, it helps you to see your own mind structure, no? Because maybe something that you wouldn't expect surprises you, and you're like, oh, okay, look, I have this approach. I'm thinking it's gonna be that type of nail.
How is it just to be one of the stewards, one of the main stewards of this place? So on the one hand, you've inherited it from someone else, he had his different perspectives, you put your own mark on it, your own practices. And like me, we both are in this place where we make decisions. With me, it's often in the online space, right? Like who's going to teach on one of our programs, or which guests are we going to invite to our latest free conference events? And, with me, it's often online. With you, it's there in person. Do you have a Gaga class? Do you allow a karate class? We've got real decisions there. And obviously both of us, I think, try and listen to other people. But it's quite something to be stewarding a space and making those kind of decisions, right? Like, what night does 5 Rhythms get compared to the other dance form? There's a lot in that, isn't there?
There is, and luckily for that type of thing that you're talking about, so far I haven't had needed to make too many decisions. But what I can say for me just was a really big personal growth. The first year something was going on and I felt like I was doing it by the book. I was applying the theory and things seemed to were working. And then when the lockdown came, we were 14 people living here. Within a month and a half, there was blood. I'm not joking. Like,
because you were just crammed together, and community life is difficult, right? Like
yeah, and
I was,
everybody,
I love going
stressed
there,
by
but
the COVID, like everybody like feeling that something terrifying and horrible in whichever way is the virus, is the conspiracy, whichever way is
sure.
happening, like, and so it was very interesting to have this experience and having to see, I'm holding the space for this. So, I have to do my homework, and what's there for me, and having the time in the lockdown to really work with the relationship, for example. My husband and I have been together for 30 years, but it's the first time that we are actually doing a project that is our livelihood together, and
Right, and no escape kind of thing, particularly during some of the lockdown. Community magnifies, and lockdown magnified even more on top of that, right?
yeah. Well, you always have your computers, no?
Well, that helps, but it's not the same. I mean, my wife definitely had a period of lockdown where we spent way more time together than we had, previously, and I think it deepened our relationship, but it could have broken it as well. There was definitely a point where it could have gone either way, in our case, I think deepened it.
Definitely. And I felt, for me, what has come through in this time is really like the place of just, I need to be true to myself, like that's how it is, and sometimes there is a limit, and you say, okay, no, here, like, no, tomorrow I'm not available. Or like finding your own space. And then I feel that when more I do that, the more I actually also have space for other people.
And what about, like, we're again both in this somewhat enviable position of being around a lot of embodiment practices. There's people listening to this who are in cities, obscure cities in Kazakhstan or whatever, who just don't have access. Like, you can walk out of your door any day of the week and do a great Gaga class. The Gaga class there is excellent. The contact jam, you could, do this, you could do that. It's all right there. And other people now have what you have kind of in person, the world kind of now has online for the first time, just the last year or two. You couldn't do BMC online before. It didn't exist 3 years ago. It just didn't exist. You had to go train with Bonnie in California or whatever, Whereas, how is that? Have all this abundance of embodiment classes. Does it spoil you? Does it make hard to make decisions? I find I just have to sort of let go of not doing everything some days.
Yes, that in particular. And for me, the other part of the balancing of that is sometimes I just really need some moment that I'm just alone.
Right.
And so I'm noticing that there are some classes where, for example, my husband goes, that after a while I'm like, oh, maybe I stay home. Not just because really, I don't know, it's a physical need.
You can have too much
to
community,
be able to hear
connection.
my own thoughts, otherwise I hear also yours, and I'd rather not.
I think it's not just other people. Sometimes it's almost like too much awareness. It's like I just want to watch TV, or like if I do like really cram it in. Sometimes I have these intensives, or I go to Berlin, or I was doing it in Lisbon quite a lot. I was going there and other places. And after a week or two, I'm like, yeah, I just want to have a coffee somewhere. I don't. You know what? That was great, but it's not the end of the world if I miss the next Gaga class.
Yeah.
There's a limit to how much consciousness practice you can do in a day. For me, a couple of hours is good. That's sort of an ideal day for me. Maybe 30 minutes meditation, maybe like one dance class, maybe one yoga class if I'm not busy. Beyond that, it's like there's only so much food you can eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I tried doing like 5-6 classes a day online at one point, just to sort of, when I had a holiday, I was like, right, I'm just going to do a class every hour. And after a week, I was just like, I just want to walk in the woods. I can't be bothered anymore.
I'm amazed. I really online nothing. I really, not because I really enjoyed the practices online were amazing. I actually felt I discovered a level of depth much deeper than because you go through all of these other things. People are in different season and a different time of the day, and you know, like so you have to kind of find this more and more common humanity, you know, like this,
Right, because we're
and
not
it
just in the
goes
same
really
place.
deep,
Yeah.
you know, like, and so from that point of view, I was completely impressed, and I felt, wow, maybe we connect even better in this way. You know, some things,
Interesting.
you know, like things that maybe turn you off, someone smell or this or that, there's not.
And it's interesting that some of those things get taken out of the equation, as you say, like, you know, something as fundamental as what time of day it is. You know, I taught 100 people earlier today all around the world, like in almost every, you know, they used to say the sun never sets on the British Empire, meaning that the British Empire was in every time zone. Now it's the sun never sets on the Zoom Empire. You know,
Yep.
there's someone in every time zone sometimes on these things.
Yep.
Do you think there's also been created, though, like we noticed our sales were a bit down on online courses, and we still have, you know, people love what we do and they come to our events, but and my friends that run analogous businesses online, I have quite a few friends who run, you know, online embodiment stuff. We stay connected, we help each other out. It's fairly, you know, nice vibe between us. We're not too hardcore competitors. And a lot of people have been saying sales are a bit down. I think people are really longing to get back to in person.
You know, we have had so much, we have a lot of stuff in person, and yes, and actually has been going on for quite a long while. You know, it's since last year that people are really like, come on, come on, come on.
Yeah, they really want to do it. And now I feel that
Yeah.
I'm wondering if people will even value community more now, and they'll value, like, you know, part of me wanting to move to the Lisbon area, you know, to hang out places there with real people, have lunch, get to know people there. You know, but I've done online to its extent, to its max. No one's done online embodiment as big as I have in terms of the conference, all the events, the company. And I just got to a point where I'm like, yeah, this is great. And as you say, there are some surprising pluses, surprising. And I've got to a point where, like, I want to know my neighbors. I want to dance in the same place every week. I want to hang out and have coffee with Rita, you know, and sit on the porch there in the Tenchi Centre under the trees. You know, like that longing, it's for me has come back even stronger than it ever existed.
I think so. I think that a lot of people are experiencing that because they had the time to, you know, we all had the time to stop.
Reflect on that.
Yeah. There was a beautiful 4D mapping that we did at the beginning of the pandemic. Again, one of these blind ones. And my husband, you met him, you know, he's this big guy, you know? So he goes in the middle of the space, because I don't know, it's number 3 or something like that. And he goes there and does stand up like this and he says, stop. And then other stuff happened. And then it turned out he was COVID.
Oh, he was COVID?
He was COVID. And this was March 10th, 2020. 2020, yeah. Something like that.
It's given a lot of, interestingly, because of also virtual working, it's also meant that people can move. There's more people who can move. You know, like I'm not the only one moving to Portugal, for example. Like I've got a whole bunch of Russian friends who have completely independently had the same idea. They're like, why am I spending winter in Russia? I'm going to move to Portugal. There's pros and cons there. There's things to be careful of, as you pointed out to me, I think very rightly. So there is also this, you know, you're an immigrant, I'm an immigrant, but that immigration just became a lot easier in the sense of what are the things that stopped people immigrating before? Language. Almost everyone speaks English now. Not everyone of every age, but way more than even 5 or 10 years ago, I'd say.
Yeah.
The job, that problem's been solved by online working for sort of not everyone again, but a big chunk of the population, right? And there's always visas and does a British passport still work in Europe and all this kind of stuff. But that two major issues with moving to a place that's more in keeping with your values or where there's more community have just been solved. And that's a huge thing. I don't think the world has realized what that means yet, because for someone like you or my granddad to move abroad was a big deal.
Yeah.
To go from Italy to California, for my granddad to go from Ireland to, you know, even Ireland to England, which you tend to think of as very similar, next door neighbors, that was a big deal in 1940.
Yeah.
You know, like his family spoke Gaelic. they spoke another language, English. Blah, blah. But now you got a laptop. I'm on a laptop now. You're on a laptop. I can come for a month, go somewhere else, stay in Airbnb. It's a whole new world.
It's a whole new world, definitely. Yeah. I remember my mother was from not the same village as my father, and I think she always fed the outsider.
Wow, this would be a different village, let alone a different
It
country.
was like maybe 150 kilometers away, something like that.
And there are some risks here as well, right? And I think you very rightly pointed these out to me when I was there. I got very enthusiastic about Portugal, and I've kind of already gone through a journey of things I love, and then seeing, okay, there's another side to it, and pros and cons. Like, we don't want a flood of thousands of people to turn up at the Tenchi Centre and trash the place, right? But simultaneously, no. I would love that a few people listen to this and go, oh, next time I'm in Lisbon, or I'm gonna pop in. We're telling a few thousand people about your centre right now. Like, there's a responsibility in that, I would say, as well. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on this kind of global movement or new possibility? Because I think as soon as COVID really calms down, and fingers crossed it may be this year, right?
I think it's already happening. Yeah, well, it's everything, like, of course, it's great. It's been great how many new people have come around this particular perspective, like, for example, contact. I remember when I came to Lisbon in 2011, the first contact jam was in my living room. Yeah.
I started one in Madeira with 5 people.
And then, and now there is several jams, even
Friday night, Saturday night.
Yeah. So it's like, it's great. And I also seen the tragedy of Lisbon, for example, how the same thing happened also for the people there, in these 10, 12 years, they have been basically pushed away.
Like, the rents have gone up, right? And this is the same story all around the world, anywhere nice, not just Lisbon, anywhere nice, including Brighton, where I live, for example, the rents go up. Because as soon as people can work virtually, they go, well, I want to live somewhere nice, and that might be nice weather, nice embodiment culture, nice food, whatever. And Lisbon certainly got a few of those things going on for it. Friendly people, beautiful food, nice weather compared to Northern Europe. Then that's going to start pricing people out. Yeah. And Airbnb, I've seen just strip out towns. These beautiful towns I've been to where no one lives in anymore.
Yeah, yeah. No, that I saw that, when we arrived in 2011, in our neighbors, we knew everybody, and they knew we were foreigner, but, it wasn't overwhelming.
Yeah.
4 years later, it was impossible for a foreigner to come and become someone that knows the neighbors, because there are so many foreigners.
Right.
You just see wheels with trolleys, and you don't have the time or the capacity to focus on another person's face, because there are too many.
So many. And this is a new world we're getting into, and I kind of feel like, okay, as someone who has a certain reach, I need to be quite responsible around this, like in terms of what we say, and who, even down to, do we have someone from a fairly small center on the podcast that could get listened to by hundreds, thousands of people? Mm-hmm. Is that a great advert for you? We're doing you a favor, or is it actually really irresponsible? Like, I've got to think about these things.
I think we take care of ourselves in some way, because we don't do things irresponsibly from that point of view. And I also feel that a lot of what is that's why the work that we were talking about today for me is so important now, because it's the time that we shift in this dimension. How do we make it so that we are more like trees? And I think that we would start to have also a very different impact where we go, because the biggest impact in Lisbon has been people arriving, and then the usual, especially Americans. I lived there 20 years, so I cannot speak on that plate, but then you start to see the same things being recreated, and things are lost, and that part is because of simply a cultural blindness
Yeah,
of a
cultural blind
country that
spot.
is used to, I have my things and I'm comfortable with that. I don't want to get out of the comfort zone, you know.
Language is a big one as well, right? Like I've started my Portuguese language learning journey, you know, try and do like even just 10 minutes a day, you know, just learning a few words, asking the hotel staff, you know, talking to my husband, on a walk with my friend. I said, tell me a few phrases while we're walking, you know, and like that. And I know you've learned Portuguese, and I think language learning is one of the key ones, isn't it? Because when people don't do that, like I'm really embarrassed when I see Brits here in Madeira who've not learned a word of Portuguese, even though they've lived here 20 years. I'm like, come on, really? You can't even learn to order. Like someone the other day was impressed that I could order a coffee in Portuguese. I'm like, well, you know, I just said I want a black coffee without milk, please. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, how can you live here for years and not learn how to order a coffee? That's crazy. And to me, there's an arrogance to that. That's like I'm not great with languages, but I can at least make a little effort.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you actually get cut out from a lot of things if you never dive into the language, because there is a lot of structure of the culture that comes from that.
Right.
That you're never gonna sense otherwise. And also there is the beauty of these distinctions that maybe is nice to maintain.
Okay, Rita, well, moving towards close here, is there anything we haven't talked about around improvisation or social presencing that you're passionate about that you want to mention before we wrap up?
No, just in some way, I just want to share that I feel hopeful. For me, it's like a lot of what has happened in these last couple of years, and even this very dramatic polarization that we are in right now, feels like a great breaking point. And I feel that many people have transformed the way that they've been interacting with the world. So
you hear the birds singing there.
Powerful there. Eh?
I can hear the birds singing in a hopeful manner. And there's something, we're in a spring, aren't we? Like now it's February the 15th at the time of recording, probably be a little later by the time we release this. Well, it will be a little later. So this is going to be released in sort of spring, you know, now it's a little earlier there than Northern Europe, you know, listening in Sweden right now, you're probably thinking, what the hell is winter, you know? But there's also this sort of springtime of, you know, hopefully, fingers crossed, coming out of the worst of COVID at least. And I think, can we afford to be hopeful? I kind of feel like we can. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, there's some things I'm worried about. I think we can. I think we can afford to be hopeful. Like that's a choice.
I think we can't afford to be
kind of not to be hopeful.
You know, because it's you know, like if we cannot take advantage of the moment of breaking points to be hopeful and see, you know, something better could emerge.
Yeah, and I know some people might have listened to this, loved ones, lost businesses, you know, they might not be feeling that, but certainly I think there's a possibility in the kind of global system that I'm just starting to sense now of a kind of a bit of hopefulness and an emergence, and like, okay, you know, I'm not going to say build back better because someone else has already got that catchphrase, but there's something there that I think could be quite positive. I'm kind of sensing into now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And for me, it's been something, my sensing is that this has been something around individual transformations that have happened collectively because of this recent point. And in a way also like really like the fact that things are so polarized that they become ridiculous. I feel it's downing on people, you know, like there's I was in Italy now for 10 days and it was interesting. There is all lockdown, green pass, super green pass, you know, like all these different things. Total, imagine last 2 years ago, there were people dying in bucketfuls and, you know, I understand. And at the same time, there was like, because so many decisions are made and then revoked and made and revoked, and then there's always this black, white, black, white, black. People are starting to be like, what the fuck, you know, like I think I need to start thinking with my own
Well, I think it's definitely highlighted something about what authority, truth, people are questioning media, people are questioning government. It's hard not to question government when there's a sign saying, you know, walk in this way, go out that way, and then you'll be safe. Or, you know, you can have a mask on. We have to have a mask on when you're standing up, or else you're a terrible person. But as soon as you sit down to eat, then you don't have to have a mask on. And, you know, it's terrible if you say it was a lab leak, but then, oh, what's that? Maybe it was a lab leak, even though we banned you from Facebook. There's this sort of, it's a bit hard under those circumstances. People talk about conspiracy. I've started saying you're a pro-spiracy theorist. Like, it takes a certain leap to not think there's something going on, to not at least question and be skeptical at this point, right? Like, it takes a certain jump, I would say, to do that. Like, if you've lived through this and you're not questioning, what do you need?
But there are a lot of different levels of questioning, you know? And I think because of also the issues around economic disasters, people are really coming to what's really fundamental there, you know, which was completely lost in the majority of the society. I can say that for sure, living 20 years in California, which is still, you know, a decent place compared to many other parts of the US, it's really like the sense of needs had come to a place that was ridiculous, no? Like constant buying of things. That can be how life is, you know, like, but that has been the direction we have been pushed towards, you know, like. I remember when I just moved to California, there was like I don't remember if it was the earthquake or some terrible riot where a lot of people got killed. And then George Bush father comes on TV. And I'm not joking. He said, oh, I'm really sorry, I'm really sad, and please keep shopping.
Wow.
I'm not joking. This was the presidential address of the nation in the wake of a disaster in which a lot of people have died.
Well, hopefully coming out of this, people will get a more constructive message than please keep shopping. Where do people check you out? I mean, you've got a nice website, right? The Tenchi Centre. What's the URL?
It's quintatenchi.org.
Do you want to spell that? Shall I spell that for people? Just because it's it's QUIN for November.
NCA.
Yeah. TENCHI.org, right? .org. Tenchi, Quinta Tenchi. A beautiful place. If you're ever in the area, it's not far from Lisbon. It's certainly worth checking out.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Rita, do you have a closing message? Anything you'd like to leave us with?
More than what we just said. No, we just talked about hope.
Okay. Thank you, darling. Nice, obrigado. Nice to see you.